I first encountered Max's book in 2015, not long after it had been published, and it was given to me by a friend who actually works at Faber. Not thinking I would be arrogant or audacious enough to think I could make it into a film, but just thinking you would really love this book, it's your taste. And he was completely right. I read it twice in one day, cried at the end, and I just thought it was like a magnificent piece of writing, and was just kind of blown away about how much depth was in this, relatively thin volume, and set about trying to, meet Max and talk to him about it. And I think that happened not long after.
Woo me.
Yeah.
I read it around the same time. I was recommended it by my sister-in-law, Megan Hunter, who'd been on part of a book tour with you, or was it actually, maybe that was a year after your publication. Yeah. And again, like Dylan, I just had an afternoon with it, and it just slammed me against the wall and didn't let me go. And I was just blown away by the power contained in this slim but really impactful volume. And I couldn't quite believe how much rich kaleidoscopic play with form and irreverence and reference and just irreverence for what grief is, like how raw and honest and truthful and powerful it was as a new window into male grief. And Crow and the boys, and the unreliable narrative of them looking back through time, and just how that all kind of played out in a lovely, subtle way. And it was very cinematic when I read it. It had a hugely visual flair. I often do that. I think a lot of readers do. I'm sure Faber readers do. But as an actor, I kind of am cursed with that. I immediately kind of cast it and play it and see it as cinema. So it made sense. It made sense that it would one day reach a screen, but little did I know it would reach me to help that happen.
And it's a quick read, which is important.
It's helpful, yeah. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks. We literally step off set and take clothes off, put yours on, wash your face, and then get in a car and breathe in some delicious northwest London air and carbon monoxide. And look, I think normally life for me at the moment is very divided into work and home, mainly home actually, and home is the work and work is like a holiday. This was slightly the other way around. It had me kind of rushing home to all the challenges of being a dad with a live and healthy family. It was a very healing thing to walk through my door. But to prepare for it, to get into it, to build a story that meant I understood who he was before the events of the film, scripted and filmed and acted, begin, so that I can reference something that is lost to me in terms of biography, in terms of story, in terms of love, in terms of a person whose absence is very pointedly, purposely at the center of a film, to understand what that person meant to me and what it is to not have that anymore. That was crucial. And Susie's extraordinary set gave a huge amount of domestic detail where I could place objects that were massively triggering for sort of memory switches and breathing and just taking a little bit of a beat so that by the time action was called, it wasn't a demand or a command, it was a sort of invitation to just let what was already paper thin and ready to go just happen. I also lent into the boys, I lent into their pain and the idea, because we filmed the first scene where after he's put them to bed, well, first of all said, well done boys, you did really well today, takes them upstairs to bed, they're exhausted, end of the funeral, puts them to bed, he comes downstairs and has his first moment of solitary, ruined collapse, and to have their pain with me. So I had Dylan play the voiceover they'd already done for their section that you hear in the film, and to carry that into that scene was ridiculously helpful and easy. And it still triggers me in the film when we get to that moment where it's the boys' chapter and they open it with their dialogue, their voiceover. Yeah, and then there were other moments that just hit me. I didn't have to prepare for at all, like packing up the clothes, just the reality of that, and the mundane universal that is, and what it means to separate articles of things which are inanimate but so alive still without the person who once inhabited them. Yeah, so and like Crow is as a presence, the unexpected was also, or more often than not, the gift in the film. The boys brought it to me as well in their acting, or their lack of willingness to act on some occasions could bring any man to tears. But no, seriously, they were so raw and honest. They were such immediate sort of touchstones for the reality of the struggle of being alone with them and trying to get yourself and them through it. So yeah, I learned a lot on the material. But before that, yes, it was all about establishing the story thus far that you never see in the film.
Mm. There is, in my collaborative relationships, which in this instance are friendships and are really warm, loving relationships, free flow of information and feeling, and that I celebrate that in all of my life, but particularly when I've trusted them to make something and that trust is rewarded. But also for me, I think it's the surprise, because I don't seek any kind of control. I wasn't ringing up saying this must be like this, or it would really upset me if this. So to be delighted by the quality of the translation and the strangeness of it. The performances blew me away and will probably continue to blow me away for the rest of my life. Every time I look at it, I'll be freshly struck by what Dad is in this film and what the boys are in this film and everything. But I think overall, the thing that I will cherish is that Dylan kept it weird, that Dylan kept it, the texture of it. The point of the book is that it leaps between different modes. You get this rich, open-hearted, sort of unapologetic sentimentality of your favourite music playing while you're weeping and drunk in your flat being spun out, cut to something really serious, or a joke, or a kind of disrespectful shrug from the child at the exact moment you want them to be paying attention. So that, the energy which I feel is very truthful of life.
For me, it was getting to be a curator and first being sort of like trusted with Max's baby, trusted with this amazing piece of literature that he created. But then once it was mine to play with, I was able to become a curator and bring on people from the world of fine art, or people from the world of graphic novels, or people whose work I admired and just from a very kind of selfish point of view, wanted to be close to. And just the joy of seeing people who are amazing at what they do, whether that's Susie Davies, the production designer who created the whole flat, or whether that's Nicola Hicks, the sculptor who originally created the maquette for Crow, or Lucy, whose illustration I've seen on screen as Benedict's illustrations. It was just this whole thing of like pulling together collaborators who I'd never been able to work with in any other way, and who I now call friends, and that's just a kind of dream. I love the idea of director as curator, not necessarily auteur, just somebody that's able to kind of pull.
Play, like the book is playful, it plays with form, and like Dylan would be ringing me alarmingly late in the process to say, I'm on a train to Newcastle to meet a fella about a gamelan. Yeah. Or I've invited a rock and roll legend from Manchester to just be in the pub. Yes. And that's what the book was. The book was magpie-like gathering of different elements to see what would happen if you put them in, and it's like a collage, and you move one thing and it changes the energy in one area, and you realise there's a repercussion further down the line, and that was your method, wasn't it?
I mean, we started on this thing so long ago that at one point my main idea for Crow was Marquis Smith, and like, that would have been, it could have been amazing, but I just loved that idea that this is a film about making. The character is making to cope with this thing that he's going through, and it's sort of handmade and rough and ready and tactile and textural, and that was the thing that was really kind of rewarding, is to make a film in that way, to go, yeah, Crow can be a bit janky and he can be a bit, you can see the seams, but that's the right Crow for this film and this family, and I just loved it. I loved that I was allowed to play in this world and sort of hopefully honour the work, the book that we were adapting, but make it its own thing as well.
to echo Max, friendship born out of a creative act, and just I feel very at ease with who these people are and the connection to them, and what Max initiated with his extraordinary book is a like-minded pursuit of honouring it within different creative forms, as Dylan was saying. So to sit back and go, all right, you may not have done a narrative fiction feature before, but I trust, because of the amount of love and investment he has in culture, that this book will be born into a film through the same way as the book was born out of Max's idea and lived experience. It is this culmination of collaboration, that it's not a wanker dictating this is how it should be and it has to be my way or the highway. That there's an allowance for it to breathe. But the next film, however, yeah,
It's nerdy as well, isn't it? It's nerdy.
What's that?
It's nerdy.
It's nerdy, but in a
Dad's
really
nerd. He's a Ted Hughes nerd.
Yeah.
I was a nerd for Ted Hughes, and then for Dad, and you're a
I'm a
nerd for
nerd, yeah.
film and for and music and art. And Benedict's a nerd for acting and books and jumpers with odd pockets.
Yeah.
And we can meet these enthusiasms.
Yeah.
And include them in our films.
You're a wordy nerd, an acting nerd, and a nerdy nerd.
nerdy.
Pure thoroughbred nerd, yeah.
Yeah, I'm tainted.
Premier
with
League
one.
nerd, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're just lost in our own tribe. But no, seriously, I think the enthusiasm of nerdiness is important.
I love that. Art can be iterative as well. I think you were saying there's so many versions of this now. This film is just one of them. When you're saying there's like a puppet show, or there's a mime performance of it, or the very act that Dad is doing in the film is creating yet another version of this in a graphic novel. So I don't know. I've never encountered anything like that seems to generate versions of itself. That's something that Max's book does. That's really astounding.
There's so much empty space in it. Invites you in to think for yourself. I think if I'd done a load of exposition, about who Dad was and where he went to uni and what the point is that the viewer does that, the reader does that for themselves. So it's an onward collaboration, isn't it?
It's lazy.
Yes.